Hey everyone, welcome to How to Pitch the Investor, a new series for New York Tech Media. It's also sponsored by New York Tech Media. Today I've got the awesome Adi Levanon, one of the leading fintech investors in Israel and worldwide, here with us. She's also a principal in Flint Capital and an angel investor that is investing in some really dominant fintech companies. Adi, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you so much. And it's good to kind of meet in person in a way via Zoom, but to see a face and connect the face to the emails and the correspondence we've had. So thanks so much for having me.
That is awesome. So let's get to it. Like, how did you start, in venture capitalism? Like, what was kind of your career flow?
If it's too loud. How did I start? Well, it's something I kind of got into from like really at a younger age. I grew up in Palo Alto. My parents are entrepreneurs, so I kind of knew in general what high tech was, and I've heard a lot of this kind of idea of what venture capital was. And actually, when I was a student, I studied law and business at the IDC. There was a job opening actually at what then was called Carmel Ventures, and today it's called Viola. And it was like a student position in the end, like after work, to work with the GPs there. But I knew kind of that, I saw it as an opportunity just to learn and to grow within. And back then I actually worked directly with Avi Zevi and Shlomo Dovrat, who were, the veterans really in just VC in general and high tech. So I started working there as a student. I was there for over 2 years and just really learned like what it is, what VC is. And I was really young, I was 22. That was just like the first learning process in it. But my first position was when I joined Rhodium, single LP firm, I guess you could say. I worked with Daniela Canati, on Piaget, Odette Hermoni, all great people. And it was just an amazing opportunity. I think I was, it's a mix of just knowing what I wanted and understanding like I had an opportunity they were looking for somebody to join the team. I was looking to make a change. Back then I was an operator at a company called Conduit. I was a lawyer. And I think just the combination of all these things together, it was just right timing and knowing what I wanted and understanding kind of what VC was. So yeah, I took the opportunity, and it was really, I don't like saying luck, because I think we make our own luck, but a lot of it was just good timing, because, back then there weren't many seed investors. You could count them on 2 hands. So it was like, before Gigi Levy. Yeah, this was before, I'm old. So this was before.
You don't look
Gigi
old.
Levy. Thank you. But this was before, Gigi Levy was doing his own investments, before NFX. And, this was really before Pitango and Carmel, now Viola, had their own seed funds. So really back then you could count on 2 hands the seed investors in Israel. So being part of Rhodium and being able to see so many fantastic companies really on was awesome. So that's a long answer, but I think it's a combination of just right time, right place, and kind of doing a bit of research.
So obviously your expertise is in fintech. So what kind of drew you to fintech specifically?
So I wouldn't say it's obvious. Like I think I grew into it. It's something that I realized also early on, because I moved to New York in 2014. And before I moved, I realized that, I wanted to build an expertise, because I think when you are a generalist in a fund, I think there's a lot of value to it, but there's also a lot of benefit in the deals that you can do, and when you have the breadth and depth of going into an industry. And so back then, while I was at Rhodium, we looked a lot into companies in the Bitcoin space. A lot of Israeli companies like Bits of Gold, if you heard of them. And there was a lot of all these other companies that were looking to mine Bitcoin. I was like, what are you guys talking about? It was total Chinese back then. But we're also investors in zoos in the payment space. So I came with some background. And I thought, if I'm moving to New York, which is the world of Wall Street and everything, I want to build, continue to building on that expertise. Again, a matter of just good timing and a great network that was very helpful. I got connected to these great GPs, the fund called Fintech Collective, as the name would imply. It's a fintech focused fund, and they were just looking to add to their team as well and grow and expand after they started their first fund. So it wasn't necessarily like, I know I'm a little bit now, I've been doing it since 2015. I've invested in some great companies in the space, and I love financial services, and I like fintech, and just, I don't know, I get it. I love it. I can go deep on it for hours. But back then it was really, they gave me a huge opportunity. And I'm really, really fortunate that they did that. So again, I think it's a combination of just being super hungry and curious and right timing. And I knew what I wanted. Like I knew that I wanted to build that expertise. So I didn't come from banking. I didn't come from private equity. But I think coming from Israel, the tech world, and being able to understand the technologies behind it. And then I just learned as I went along what it meant to do, what it meant to be an insurance tech company, what it meant to do like mobile lending in Africa, what it meant to build a fantastic company like Quovo in the wealth and asset management space that ended up being sold to Plaid, or MoneyLion, that's a consumer lender. So I learned a lot from them and just from the process.
That is super interesting. So like, if you want to kind of lean in on more of the practical kind of tactical stuff you need to face on, day to day, like, so obviously you get pitched by tons of entrepreneurs, probably on a daily basis. How do you prefer to get pitched? Is it via email, LinkedIn? Like what is, or intros, like what is your kind of shtick on that?
It's funny now that you asked this question, because literally yesterday a founder called me on my phone. I don't even know how this person got my number. And I guess maybe it's the Israeli vibe, is like, not a big deal. I'll just call you and be like, hey, and he's like, hi, my name is X and I'm a founder of the mobility space. And I was just in the middle of a meeting. I thought maybe it was like a service provider or something important. So I picked the phone. I'm like, you called me to share your, I was in shock. It was so weird. I ended up calling him back and saying, look, I don't know how you got my number. I try to be as nice as possible.
Yeah. But
I thought it was a bit out of the ordinary. So I told him, look, first of all, I don't focus on the mobility space. I have no idea how you got my number. If I prefer, I think it's better for both of us, is that look online and see who I am and what the fund does. So you know that we don't invest in mobility. Like it's just, basic research, but you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I share my email with everybody. My email is open. I think even my Gmail is open because I get a lot of spam. I don't know, but I need to check. But for sure, Flint's email I share because I want people to reach out. I have no problem with cold LinkedIn messages or cold emails or whatever. I think that's totally fine. Yes, I think there's something better when it comes from somebody I know, but in many cases, people send me things just because, like, okay, so we have a mutual connection, but the dude's like, hey, I'd love to get connected to Flint. The guy's like, sure, here you go, forward. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change my perspective. So to be honest, and all means are kosher, but I think calling is maybe not the way to do it. But everything else is fine. I am not a snob about it. I try not to be. Just reach out. Worst case, I'll tell you, thanks so much, not relevant, and we'll move on.
Awesome. I like it. So every means kind of works except calling. Don't direct call. Okay.
You can listen. I get WhatsApp messages too, and I find it like, I don't know how they got my number if they're not emailing me. But anyway, again, it's fine. I don't think it's the end of the world. Because we're so, we're all in Zooms and meetings and calls. I think if you're calling me, it's a little bit different, but not the end of the world.
So what is kind of like the first thing you notice about an entrepreneur, once he starts pitching, once he starts talking to you, what kind of, lights you up?
Yeah, I think, it's a combination. I think I try to figure out really quickly how much they understand the market, right? Like, do they get the complexities? Do they get the problems? Have they looked at the competition? Do they understand like where they are positioned in the market? And this is something that's sometimes difficult to see in a first conversation, but in most cases it should be there. I should recognize really quickly, if they don't have expertise in this space, then try to figure out why they're doing it. Like, ask them literally, like, so why this? What about it is something that you feel that you want to take the next 10 years to build on, and also that you think you're the people to do it. And two, I really, really try to understand from them if they understand their market positioning and if they can express it well enough. I think that to me is really, really key, and that's a good starting point. And that's just around the market, right? And like the why of what they're doing. And then obviously more than that, I think then it's just like from a personal perspective, I want to see that they're not afraid to share like what they know and what they don't know. Like, I think that, I said this a lot. I think that the best combination of any founder is when you have the conviction that's there. Like, these people, they know what they want. They do not look, there's no bullshit. They'll listen, but they do their own thing. Like, you need to really, it's such a bumpy road, and you need to figure out really quickly, like, if they believe in what they're doing wholeheartedly, but they're humble enough and they really have enough humility to say, well, actually, no, I'm not sure about this, but I think what we'll do to fix it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That, I mean, like, there's some founders that I've invested in and just like, that was so apparent from like the first conversations, and you're just like, yeah, like this, you know, this team, male, female, doesn't matter. They just got it. And I think that that is a really important trait. You need to show conviction, but you also, I think there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't have the answers to that, but here's how I think we're going to do that. Or here is how I think we're going to overcome it. Because in the early stages, you know, sometimes I've seen companies pre-seed as an angel investor, even, you know, sometimes it's like the first check even. But even if we see companies in the A, they don't always have all the answers.
Yeah.
Even if they think they've reached product market fit, sometimes there's still more things, you know. And I'm not saying that we're necessarily smarter than they are. Hopefully they're much smarter than we are in the sector they're targeting and the market they're after. But I think being able to be humble while also having that confidence is key.
Love it. How long does it usually take you to kind of, you know, make a decision on a specific company? Is it, you know, a week, 2 weeks?
No, it's a good question. I think it really depends. Just like, I mean, everything now is so competitive. There's just so much capital and things move so quickly. Like literally, I congratulated yesterday a friend of mine. She's a partner in a fund, and I was like, "Oh, congrats on this deal that just came out." She goes, "You have no idea. It was a matter of hours." I'm like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yes, I'll tell you later." But I think that that's a lot of what's happening nowadays is like that. There was deals that I unfortunately lost because like we just, you know, we're like, okay, we'll talk about it tomorrow or in a week. And then just things kind of were closed already. So really, it really depends on the pace. If we need to make quick decisions, we just did a deal, can't share, but we just closed a deal that a founder that I've been tracking since 2019. We finally got the opportunity to join. And that was from like first meeting. And then the next, I think immediately we had a call with our second partner on board. And then it was just like in that weekend, we just closed everything. So it can really be a few days. But in most cases, you know, due diligence process could take like, I think a few weeks, like 2 weeks to a month maximum. But I think that the month is not a relevant time frame anymore. If we're doing an A, maybe, but even then it's not the relevant time frame. It needs to be a few weeks. It needs to be within 2 weeks. Yeah.
Well, things are getting really competitive.
Oh yeah, they've been competitive for a while. But again, in my mind, you know, I don't play the FOMO game. It's not something I look at. I mean, maybe it's easy to say, and I'm sure there's great teams that I've missed out on because of that, but to play that FOMO game is just silly. I don't think that I need to invest just because XYZ have invested or this name gave a term sheet. I think it's more like, can we be helpful? Can we, you know, can we bring added value? Can we be helpful? Do I understand the space? And obviously try to show that. I mean, like even when I reach out to founders, and yes, VCs do reach out. Any VC who says otherwise is lying. Everybody's pinging everybody on LinkedIn and emails and whatever. That's totally the way it is. And I'd say bluntly, like whether you're fundraising or not, I'd love to just chat and see how we can be helpful in the meantime.
Wow.
So I think like that I think is most important. And yes, it's super competitive. Like you still need to come as early as you can, build a relationship, show that you understand the space, show that you can hopefully be helpful and build that rapport and that relationship so that hopefully they'll be like, okay, I want you in. Even if you're leading or not leading, if Bessemer, this, that, whatever, who comes in and gives the you know, the term sheet, that they still want you on board, even if it's a small check.
So
it's not easy.
I think like my next question, I don't know if you would like to answer it, but it's really interesting. Yeah, I'll try you. So how much like of the deals that are getting closed for you guys and for you specifically and personally, how much is it from you doing that? Like if you had to split it, you know, by percentage, how much is it coming from you doing the outreach or from people coming to you nowadays?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Outreach.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it doesn't mean that we're not getting a lot of inbound, because we are.
Yeah, of course.
A lot.
Yeah.
But when you think about like the most interesting companies that I've gotten the ability to either invest personally, or I mean, there's a few that were, no, honestly, there was a few that was like, I went to some, I don't know, I was on like, I'm trying to think. Sometimes it was because a VC, actually US VC, told the entrepreneur to reach out to me, or sometimes because I was like mentor on some event and like I met the founders. I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. Let's take it forward. But when I look at the investments that we've done, a lot of it was outbound. And I think it's because, again, I meet these founders, and we all try to do this, meet them as early as possible, build that relationship. It can be through other funds and other we are a very collaborative fund. Me as an individual, I really believe in collaboration, not being competitive, right? That's just not, I think that you bring so much more value to a founder. And this is, again, no offense to any of the funds that decide to take entire rounds and maybe add in a few angels here and there. I think that's okay too, if that's their way and that's their thesis. But I believe in collaboration. So we don't get a lot of, from other funds. It's very competitive nowadays. You do get that. Of course you do. Just now we did a deal, that we got from another fund. And so of course you get that. But a lot of it is, the original relationship was from my outbound.
That is super interesting. Outsiders to the industry,
Times have changed.
They wouldn't think about that way. But it's super interesting. And I think it kind of tells you a lot on where the industry is going.
But everything in VC is cycle. So if you would have asked me years ago or how it was in New York, I got so much inbound when I was in New York because I was a fintech focused fund when fintech just became a thing. So all the funds that I met while I was there, I met some of the best teams and the best companies in the pre-seed because I got inbound from other funds and inbound from other founders. It was just constant. But again, it was a very different market. So it depends if you're, buyer's market, seller's market. It really depends. Now it's entrepreneurs. It's a great time to be an entrepreneur. It's a crazy time to be an investor. It's a good time to be a VC too, because there's a lot of capital. But you gotta hustle. You always gotta hustle. I've always hustled, and I've always also done a lot of outbound. But it used to be much more inbound, and now it's, I don't know. I would say more skewed towards outbound versus inbound. But there's obviously both.
Wow. So. Okay, I think my last question for you today is going to be a more gentle kind of question. I asked you some I think pretty tough ones. What is your favorite book or book recommendation, or I don't know, of something that really impacted you, in your business philosophy, the way you do business, or personally or spiritually, whatever.
So I think it's, from a startup ecosystem, high-techy perspective, I think that really reading The Hard Thing About Hard Things is a great book. I think it's a wonderful book. I do recommend also reading, if you're interested in venture capital, then you can read Venture Deals. I think, I don't remember who, Brad Feld, I think, wrote it. I don't remember who wrote it. It's a great book.
I think so, yeah. Let me check.
It's a great book for anybody, looking to get into VC. I think it's Brad Feld. I hope I'm not getting it wrong. I apologize if I'm missing that out.
Brad Feld it is.
Awesome. I really like Give and Take, which is a lot of my philosophy in general. I think that, you said philosophical. It's a very, I think it's a business thing, but also philosophical. You need to give love to get love. And I think that you need to give in this industry in order to actually do great things. I think that when you look at the landscape of venture capital, I think that you see different types of investors, and some might think okay, that's nice that you spend so much time just giving and whatever, you should be closing deals. I think I should be doing both, because at this stage of being a venture capitalist, it's a platform. You have a platform. People listen. People care what you think. People think that you know what you're talking about, especially if you do have domain expertise. And I think that if I can take this opportunity and we talked about this before the call, to help female VCs connect with female founders. If I can help with mentorship, if I can help, whatever I can do, I want to be able to help. And I've noticed that you never know where these things will lead to.
Yeah.
So if even I think it was Michael Eisenberg from Aleph, who's one of the best investors in the world, he said bluntly, everything's about relationships, and it's not cliche and it's not corny. If you're not building these relationships and you don't really care, I think it comes back to you. You need to hustle, you need to work hard. And I think Give and Take is a great book. And I personally, this is just me, and not everybody likes this stuff, but I listen to Spiritually Hungry, which is a great podcast. It's a couple. They're part of the, you don't have to believe in cabal or any of that stuff, but I think that what's interesting is that they talk about really things that have to do with growth, general growth of us as human beings, and they touch upon it, and I think they give really cool perspective. And I think for a founder, anybody who wants to build something, anybody who just wants to be a better person, just listening to it, I think is I don't know, I'm intrigued by it every time. I would recommend it.
Never heard about it until you mentioned it. I'll check it out for sure. Awesome.
I like it.
Yeah. So Adi Levanon, thank you so much for being on the show. And for everyone that's listening, you gotta check out her Techcrunch articles. Gotta check them out.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adi. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.